First of all, I just want to tell you, we are uber excited to have you with us. She's a hero in the chicken community eyes. Okay. Hi, I'm Mel, in case you didn't know who I was.
Yes, I do.
Okay, we're super excited to have you with us today.
Super excited to be here.
Excited. Oh,
yes.
We love a good pun, don't we?
Yes, we are. Chicken people are pun people.
You know what? That is... more people in the chicken community, I see them use like exciting, like exciting or hen party, because I think we're just funny like that,
Yeah, that's how my brain works.
Yeah, that's how my brain works too. Hey y'all, I'm Mel, and you are listening to Wilma the Wonder Hen. Are you a chicken mouth loving mama or daddy? Together we'll dive into the latest poultry keeping adventures, chat about everyday life, with a generous mix of some hilarious stories. Bringing you fascinating interviews with poultry owners from all over. You'll find tips and basic advice from your local veterinarian, along with new chicken keeping gadgets and reviews. I'm going to see what Mr. Jangles and Wilma has to say about that. We're going to encourage and help you build a stronger, healthier flock. Let's go see what Mr. Jangles and Wilma is up to. Let's go let these heifers out. We're super excited. We have Erica with us. She is from Second-Hen'd. Is that correct?
Yes.
Hend? And when I saw that,
yes.
I was like, I better make sure I say this right.
No, it's a play off of Second-Hen'd.
That's what I thought. Yes.
Like reused, repurposed. Yeah, but with hens.
And Erica is a 501c3 nonprofit focused on finding loving forever homes for spent hens. Oh my gosh. How precious. How precious. We want to hear all about it. I want to know a little bit about yourself first. Like growing up, did you rescue animals all over the neighborhood to start with? Is that what you did?
Okay. So it's a bit more that came later, but what started out was, so my father is Colombian. He's an immigrant from South America. And we no longer have it, but we had a family farm down in the Andes Mountains. And my father and mother were both teachers. So we would get the entire summer off. So in order to not go crazy when they had nothing to do, we would fly all the way from Guam to Colombia, South America. And we would spend the summer on our family farm. And so I grew up around animals. I grew up loving animals, but the traumatic part for me came in when they would bring all these animals to the farm. I would bond with them, make connections, give them names, and then their purpose was not to be my friend. Their purpose was for food.
Right.
And so each time I would get so attached, and then their time would come. And I would beg, try and sell my soul, please, not these ones, or, not this one. This is my friend. And I was really not successful, maybe once or twice. And then a couple hours later, it was like, oh, and by the way, sorry, we couldn't save your friend, but oh, by the way, here, now eat your friend. And that was pretty traumatic for me. So I feel like growing up like that, because it still happens, you could go one or two ways. You can either continue and you grow up and continue that lifestyle, or it has the opposite effect and you're kind of turned off to it, and you make it your mission to go save all the animals. And so that's kind of what happened with me. Once I was in a position where I was on my own and I could make those decisions, I was all about saving the animals. I would say when we were not in Colombia, I was definitely trying to save animals. My dad was not necessarily happy about it, but I still tried.
Yeah.
So like that's how I got my first kitty cat, and my dad didn't want the cat, but my mom was like, sell your soul. And I'm like, okay, soul sold. So I got to keep the cat. And I started out doing a lot of like TNR stuff the trap neuter release for feral cats. And then once my son was born,
I'm going to stop you just a second.
Sure.
So when did you move here? Like, when did you move here?
To St. Louis? So
Yeah.
I moved to St. Louis back in the beginning of 2010.
Okay, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. So we found out that my son had allergies to cats, pretty severe. So I had to kind of give up the cat thing. And it was around that time. So moved to St. Louis in 2010. Had my daughter in 2010. I was working. My husband and I moved here from DC, the DC area, which was way, 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 way more expensive. So once we got here, we finally had a chance to, be able to save money. We got our first house, and we got our first house. I believe it would have been 2012, and then not long after that, our son was born, our second kid, and we both decided to go to school at the same time while working full-time jobs and having two young kids. So from 2012 to 2016, we were in school, and then about midway through, they changed the law here for how many chickens you could have. Yeah. It used to be you could only have 4 animals.
Are you in the city?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you already had like 2 indoor cats, you could only have 2 chickens.
Oh, wow.
And no roosters. And so about midway through school, they changed that law. So now you can have 4 indoor animals, and then you can have up to 8 chickens outside. Still no roosters. So I found out that I could have the chickens, and I got very excited, and I started planning. And then that was going to be my graduation gift to myself was,
chickens.
We had space for a coop, and it was going to be chickens. And I'm a big planner. Before I do anything, I like to really research and learn about it, make sure I'm prepared.
Right.
So I guess, so growing up on a farm, I got this idea that chickens were easier than they are because, the mama hens were always the ones raising the chicks, right? Like,
right.
And then the chicks would, learn, oh, hey, they're nice. They're not going to hurt us. We can hang around them. But it wasn't like the chicken community now, where people are hatching their own birds. Like it was on the farm, it was very, mama hen did all the work.
Right.
And we didn't get too hands-on until after the babies were born. So I thought it was going to be easy, but I still wanted to be prepared. And in all that researching and stuff, that's when I found out about what goes on over in the UK. And I was like, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
How can I do that?
That was one of our questions we were going to ask if you were familiar with that, which I assumed you would be, but if that was part of the inspiration for this.
Yes. And so during my planning, of course, I talked to other friends about my plan to hatch these, or hatching my plan for these chickens.
Yeah.
And I actually got a couple friends on board too, who were like, oh, well, I've been thinking about chickens, and so I talked to them about this idea of, well, I want to try and find a place where we can adopt some of these chickens and save them from being killed. And I searched and I searched and I searched because I was willing to drive. I was willing to take a long drive to go get some of these chickens, but I couldn't find anything in the area or even any neighboring states. And so, I was kind of like, it started with me saying, well, let me call around to some local farms and see if maybe one of these farmers would just let us have like maybe 20 birds, to split between me and my friends. And I couldn't find anything, and I still to this day don't know how it happened. Somehow word got out about what I was doing because my friends all swear that none of them said anything, but somehow word got out about what I was doing. And I started having people contact me, kind of saying, hey, if you do this, can you add me to your list? And I was like, oh, well, okay. And I just kept hitting walls. because every egg producer that I reached out to, they thought they either wanted money for the birds,
Right.
or they thought that I was like undercover PETA. Like I was going to try and get in and expose them. And they just didn't trust me because I am an animal lover that was scary for them. And so no matter what, you know, it was like, again, I was willing to sell my soul. I'm like, what do you need me to do to prove to you that that's not my intention? But they wouldn't budge. And so for over 2 years, I was trying to find, you know, someone to work with me. And the farmers that wanted me to pay for the birds, I made it really clear up front. I was not willing to do that. Respectfully, I don't agree with the industry. And so that money would just be going right back into,
Right, I understand.
you know, supporting that. So, but I did say, you know, like, hey, if you want to donate the birds though, you know, cause you're going to be getting rid of them anyway, we're happy to take them off your hands. And so kind of throughout that process, I did also realize maybe if I had something that I could, like offer them that was at risk or made me more official, that would, you know, have a better chance for someone to work with me. And so that's when I started the process of trying to get our 501c3 so that I could say, hey, I'm not willing to risk this, so I'm not going to do something stupid. But then I could also offer, you know, like if you give us a value of these birds, and I won't pay you for them, but I can give you like a donation receipt or something for tax purposes. But they flat out told me, like, you know, no, I mean, they're trash. They're not worth anything to us. So, you know, that doesn't do much. So
you did end up finding some though. Like you obviously you searched and you found someone. Was this a production house that you found these from, or a local farmer maybe? This was a local farmer. And I feel like the timing was just right. Like they have veterans in their family, and I was saying, hey, you know, one of my focuses with this is I want to help other disabled veterans. You know, chickens are very therapeutic for me. I feel like they would be for other veterans, but also people, you know, with anxiety, depression, you know, anyone with PTSD. It doesn't just have to be veterans. Chickens have been, you know, really good for people with autism. Just a number of things. These chickens are very therapeutic. And so I feel like that's kind of what opened the door. You know, they were like, oh, you know, well, I have veterans in my family. So, and they're pretty honest. So maybe we'll give you a shot. And like I said, I told them, you know, whatever you need. And I mean, ultimately it came down to part of our agreement is that we keep them anonymous. I do hope that someday they may be willing to go public. I ask them every once in a while, because I think it would be a really good thing. It's just the thing that has, I guess, been frustrating for me is that there's this mentality of like them versus us, you know? And the big thing for me is like, why don't we instead focus on our similarities and where we can compromise and build a relationship on that and then go from there. And that's what I've done. I think for farmers, it can be, like you said, you know, scary for them because they don't know, you know, what you're going to want from them or, you know. But when you went to get your first hens, how many were there? Or was this a large group, just a couple? And can you talk a little bit about what you know, the condition of the hens, you know, age-wise and all, just so that our listeners can get an idea of what we're talking about when we talk about spent hens. We're not talking about old ladies here. We're talking about hens that are past their egg-laying production years, right?
So, okay. So if you notice on like our website and all our literature and on social media and stuff, we call these birds spent hens, and we always put spent in quotes. And that's because, so that's the terminology that the egg industry uses for these birds. So we are using their lingo, right? That's one of the things that we have found works better. So in the UK, these birds are known as ex-battery hens. Now, we found that the egg producer that we work with is not a fan of that wording. And there's a few reasons for that, which I can go into. And so the term battery, right? That's a type of caging system. They have them here, they have them in the UK, they have them everywhere. So the term ex-battery hen just means that it's a hen that came from that type of caging system. So in the UK, this is a big thing. It's no big deal for them to use that terminology. However, I don't know what to call them. I don't know the right word. I don't want to make people angry. There were, I guess you could say, people that are more on the extreme view of things that took those words or took that name, and they used it for, they really focused on the like battered part, the battery. So they turned it into like, oh, these hens are battered. Okay. Look how beaten and abused they are.
Okay.
And so the egg producers associate that terminology with those kind of people. And those are the same kind of people that they worry about, breaking into their property. I'm like, this is really tricky part, but it's important to cover.
Yes, and you explained it very well, the difference in why that. But you're absolutely right. I mean, looking at, an egg producer, a commercial producer, and you're using the words battery, that's giving them a bad name, that they abuse their hens during, their time there. But that can be a very wide opinion of what abuse is. But yes, I completely understand what you're saying.
Because, I mean, there were even, I don't think it went over very well, but there were some vets in the UK that were arguing that, these chickens are better off and crammed in small cages, but the thing is these egg producers associated, because of the way that it was twisted and brought here to the US to mean something totally different, the egg producers don't like that name for it. So that's one of the things we said, okay, fine. You don't like it. We don't need to call them that. Like we'll use your terminology. Yeah. That's no problem. But since the term spent can also be misleading, that's why you'll see we always put it in quotes.
Right, because they're not spent. They're not done. Not for your average backyard.
Right.
Chicken keeper.
So the truth is these girls are. So the youngest group we've ever had was just under a year old, and the oldest was a little bit over 2 years. So the reason that they're getting rid of them is because they hit their first molt. And so it's kind of, I guess it's kind of like women with periods. Like I'm sure when one starts molting, they all start going.
Yes.
And it could happen depending on the time of year that they were born is going to depend. Like they could skip that first year and not molt until the second year,
right,
or they hit it early. So that's why you see the range in age. But so they hit their first molt, and since it could take 2 to 3 months for these girls to pick up production,
right,
they're not making money if they continue to feed them and pay for their care if they're not producing as many eggs. So it's cheaper for them to, get rid of that group and then bring in a younger group that's laying more frequently. So they don't hide what they do. They're very open about what they do. And that's the thing, is when we go out and educate people about, what goes on, we don't say anything that they themselves haven't put out there, and we do it in a way that hopefully encourages people to make more compassionate choices. But we do fill in some of the blanks, because it's not that they're not being honest. It's just that they're leaving certain stuff out. So they're saying like, yeah, we get rid of these birds when their production slows down. So that, marketing makes people think, oh, so these must be old birds, because they're not laying anymore. But what they're not saying is, oh, but that's because they're going through a molt. And if we just wait a couple months, they'd pick back up and still be really good layers. They leave that out. So that's where we kind of come in and let people know, well, actually, they're young girls still. They still have a lot of good years left in them, and they deserve to live being free chickens.
Right.
And that's what we want from, our adopters.
Do you see a lot of the battery cages in the places that you deal with, or do you see what's typically called free range, or?
So we don't go in the facility or like on the property, because that would be biosecurity. They're really, really
right.
like big
Obviously,
about that.
Yeah.
But the only birds that we get come from those caging systems. They're the ones that they only, I think they have a few different systems. So they have ones where there's like one bird to a cage, and then they have setups where they could cram like 8 to 10 in a small area. But essentially they get about the size of an 8x10 piece of paper. That's how much room each bird has. And so you can imagine that's not very big, so they can't really stretch their wings or stretch their legs. They don't see the sun. They don't get to breathe fresh air. They don't feel grass, no dust bathing, none of those things. So when we get them and place them with adopters, all of those things are going to be firsts for them.
So is that your goal, is once you, obviously you and your friends aren't going to just continue to collect chickens in your backyard. Your goal is to ultimately give them forever homes. Mm-hmm. And, that would take away some of that factory chick business, because hatching chicks is a big production as well, not just, eggs and egg production. You're going to have huge companies that produce mass amounts of chicks. You are having adopters come in and take these ladies home, correct?
Yes. And we work really hard to vet our adopters. Like we don't, how do I say this? I don't want to say we don't sugarcoat it, but we are very upfront about what our expectations are of adopters. We expect that first and foremost, these chickens are pets. Whether or not they still lay eggs, like that's something separate. Now we have made it a point to not join the great egg debate, is what we call it.
Yeah.
Or ever make anyone feel like they're being shamed for their choices of whether or not they decide to eat eggs. There's no point in doing that. It's not a win for anybody.
No, it isn't. So, it just causes more division, and then the hens don't get the help they need. So
right, because that would be shutting out so many potential adopters. And so instead, like we did with the egg producer, we focus on our common ground, right? So we don't, we're sad about the conditions that these girls were living in, and we want to give them better lives. And first and foremost, they're pets. If they get sick or injured, you take them to a vet. If it's something so bad where they're beyond repair or beyond help, you take them to the vet to be humanely euthanized. These are our expectations, just like you would do with your cat or dog.
Right.
And, sometimes there are people that, they don't want to do that. So it's like, okay, well then I guess, we're not going to tell you don't have chickens, but you're not the adopter we're looking for. Or we've had people contact us wanting to take like 200 to 300 birds. And we're like, wait a minute, that's awesome that you can take that many, But as we start looking into things further, we find out, oh, they run a small commercial egg business, and they thought they were going to get just some like cheap or free birds that they can add. And so they're no different, right? Like, they may do things better than where these girls came from, but they also still aren't willing to like reassure us that if they stop laying, they're not gonna, and that's part of our adoption agreement too. Like that, no, if you don't want the birds anymore for whatever reason, just bring them back to us and we'll find a home for them.
Yeah. So where would you house that many chickens to start with?
So we have a couple quarantine areas set up. Now, this all requires a lot of planning. So we need to know things ahead of time because we have to get that quarantine area set up, and it's definitely not set up. It's not permanent. So that's why there is, kind of a rush when we get birds. We keep them in quarantine while they undergo testing. And then, once the test results come back clean, then adopters can pick them up. And since we don't have a permanent space to house them, that's why we're like, all right, as soon as these test results come back, like, you got to come get your birds, because we also don't, it costs money to keep them longer. And we don't have money just rolling in, being thrown at us. Otherwise we would be a lot farther in the process. Like we have, we'd love to find a plot of land, where we could set something permanent up. And then that would give us the ability to get a lot more birds at a time. And we could spend, extra weeks, months getting them better before they go to homes, instead of there being this big rush. Because there are some people that would love to do this. They would really like to adopt, but they're hesitant because they're worried that they couldn't handle the birds in that rough of shape. Right. But if we could rehabilitate them and get them better first, they would be open to it.
Do you have a specific place that you bring the rescued hens? You go get them, then you bring them back. Are people donating areas for you to do this kind of hands-on thing, or is this done at your own home, or how is that done?
So we have an area that's donated, I guess, or it's our friend lets us use this space. We get it set up, and then on adoption day, we have it set up. So depending, like, we find out where each person lives. And so we set it up kind of like who's closer. We have them go to myself or like our VP, Rebecca. She sets up an area and we bring the birds there for pickup day so they can come get their birds.
Do you have veterinarians that you work with? Who performs all these tests? Do you bring them in? Yes. Do they come out?
So we take the samples to our vet, and that happens day one. First day we get the birds. They go to the quarantine space. We get the samples. We take them to our vet. She gets them ready to go and sent off. And then we triage all the birds, and we cut their nails. We give them vitamin B12 and calcium injections. We get any nastiness out of the beaks. Sometimes we have to trim the beaks if they have like overgrowth. And then we have a banding system, and any that are not doing well right off the bat, they get a red band, and then they will get to be seen by our vet the next day. They go in and they're taken care of. And those girls end up becoming, sometimes they're permanent special needs. Sometimes the issues they can be resolved. So we just keep them a little bit longer, and they're not released until they're given the all clear by our vet. And sometimes they're too far gone, so they need to be humanely euthanized. It just depends on the situation. But whenever we have girls that end up being permanent special needs, we always work with our list of adopters to find the right home for them. Someone who's willing to take on those extra responsibilities. Right. and give those girls what they need. Because there are going to be ones, like we've gotten ones that were blind. So, they can't be full-time outside free-range girls. So we need people that understand that, have the setup for it, or are willing to take that on.
So how many hens have y'all saved so far?
So far, about 735.
Wow. That's a lot. Do you ever keep up with the ones that you adopted out?
Oh my gosh, yes. So we, a lot of these adopters have become really good friends. We have a really awesome community that we've built, and we always ask for updates because we love seeing that transition.
Yeah.
Because like you asked about the condition that they come in. So, I mean, they're rough. We could joke about how they're like 50 shades of brown because
they are.
These should be white leghorns.
Right.
But you can tell based off of the shade of brown that they are, like, who was on top and who was on the bottom, and they're super stinky. They are missing most of their feathers, and what feathers they do have are those, I don't even want to call them pin feathers because that's not it. They're broken feathers. So they're really sharp. And so it's very, like, it's dangerous to handle them because they're terrified of everything at first. So they freak out. Like, we've gotten stabbed and cut, like sliced, all sorts of stuff. And there's some sassy girls that will peck you with those really sharp beaks until you like file them down.
I got some of those, and they're not amused in any way.
But see, they're that like super scared status where they're just fighting because they think you're no good. Because if you think about it, the only human interaction they've had before us has been limited, and it's also been negative. So
I just wrote an article about that chickens, they are super smart because they do not forget a face, but they also do not forget the interaction with that particular face.
You want to hear something crazy? Okay. And this is what I personally strongly believe that chickens are capable of, like PTSD. Like, they experience that similarly to humans. And I say that because we noticed early on, these chickens, they do not like people. They don't like when you're wearing a hoodie. Hoodies are a big no-no. They do not like baseball caps, and they do not like wheelbarrows. So if you think about it, and this actually came up during one of my conversations with the egg producer not too long ago. So it's been 5 years now that we've been doing this. And I've noticed these things from the very beginning. So each time we go to get birds, we noticed, the guys that bring the birds to us, or the ones that went and got them out of the cages, they're wearing baseball caps, right?
Right.
The other thing is when they go through, when they're in those houses dealing with the birds, they have to wear those like hazmat suits.
Yes.
That are hooded. And that was the other thing, is when COVID hit and we had to wear masks a lot, they freaked out about that too. So that was a newer thing that we found. But so when they're in these houses dealing with the birds, they're wearing the masks and they're wearing those hooded hazmat suits. And so in my recent conversation with the egg producer, he made I can't remember what it was, but he made some comment about how these birds are smart and they remember people. And I was like, oh, why do you say that? He's like, well, because whenever the guys in the white suits come in, they know it means something not good's about to happen. And I was like, wait a minute. These white suits, what do they look like? Do they have hoods? He's like, yeah. I'm like, do they wear masks? And he's like, yep. And so I was like, oh, okay. That's it then. So they know when they see that, it means no good. And then the wheelbarrow thing, the only thing that I can figure with that is, so they go through the houses each day looking for birds that have passed, and they get them out and they put them in the wheelbarrows and they just go down the rows. And that's the only thing I can think of, that these birds are seeing their friends being taken out of the cages and, wheeled off. But then the only other thing that we've really noticed that they freak out about is the sound of like huge semi trucks. which makes sense because the way that they're transported, it's probably not a good experience.
No. It's an awful way to take a ride. So how did you learn to care for all these beautiful little mamas?
A lot of trial and error, but also our vet. So we have a couple vets that we work with. We have the one main vet that like really works with us when we get the spent girls, like with the triaging and stuff like that. And she's taught us a lot. And then we have another vet that we use, I would say, if she's out of town or if we have an issue that is like, it needs like a specialist.
Right.
And so between the two of them, they have just been great sources of knowledge. They understand, that we don't have funding to, to fix all these issues. And so they've been really good about teaching us what we need to do to be able to take care of these issues without needing to pay to get them involved. And that's helped tremendously.
I think that's an important topic too, because we're blessed to have an avian veterinarian, but I know a lot of people in the chicken community that are nowhere near a veterinarian. Learning on your own some of these things and how to care for them is something that we really try and promote. And so what would be some resources that you could give to kind of help the average backyard chicken keeper? I know you have a vet, but there has to be something else, some other.
So as far as on our website, I have tried to compile a list because when I first started looking into keeping chickens, that was one of the things I was researching was, if they get sick, who will they see?
Right.
And I couldn't find anybody. As time went on, I was able to find, first it was a specialist, an avian vet. And then as adopters built up, they would say, oh, well, I've had chickens for a while. My vet sees chickens. Okay, give me their name.
Yeah.
Give me this information. Yeah. And so I started keeping a list. And I do my best to keep it updated. But it's at least a list of vets in the area or clinics that have someone that's willing to see chickens. And we always tell adopters, if your vet is not on this list and they're good with chickens, let us know so we can update this. Because I've been there and I've felt that when you have something going on and you can't find someone to see your bird. Because I've had a sick bird in the middle of the night and I was calling around even emergency clinics that my regular vet said, oh, if you have an emergency, call them. They'll help you. They flat out told me, oh no, we don't see livestock.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
right.
but my vet said you're who to call. And they're like, well, you need to tell your vet they're wrong. Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's a huge problem that a lot of people in our chicken community, they do face because they don't have they may have a vet for their regular cat and dog, small animal, but it's not something that a lot of vets put a lot of time into to learning about poultry. So anytime that you can find one that is willing or have a resource list, for your area. And I think if each of us did that within our own area, then maybe, someone could look and add to it. Yeah, that's a fabulous idea. I love that. That's really good.
See, I'm always trying to watch what I say though, because like we have a wide range of supporters, and I'm sure you get it. We have anywhere from the hardcore vegans to people that are
you don't want to make the vegans mad.
I'm trying to cut back on my meat intake, and then anywhere from that to we've even got some adopters that are hardcore hunters, but they have a soft spot in their heart for chickens, and it's okay, how do we make everybody happy? And not say something that's going to anger the masses. So,
but I love that you're saying that, and I'm going to keep this because I really think that's super important because you are trying, there are people that raise chickens for their family to feed their families. There are people who would never touch anything that even was made by an animal,
but we're focusing on our common ground. We want to save these girls and give them a better life. And that's what we agree on. And that's where we can bond and be friends.
I think it would be great. I don't know if this is something you already have. Maybe it's on your website, but possibly doing some educational videos on how to treat, for lice, how to treat for mites, how to treat for leg mites. These are typical common things that you also see in your backyard, not just in big farm productions.
So it's all hidden right now.
It's all hidden.
I've been working on it over the years. Okay. I have stuff like that and like a frequently asked questions and like what to do. It's so hard because so it's me and 2 other people that do like the bulk of this.
Oh, that's a lot.
So we are trying to vet adopters, get paperwork done. We have full-time jobs. We have families. We have like all these, we have chickens of our own.
Right.
And it's a lot. Yeah. So it's like, we try and do what we can. And we hope that by continuing to like put ourselves out there in this way, that people who really want to help will, be like, hey, maybe I can help you make these videos. Yeah. Or maybe, what I mean? Like,
absolutely. Yes.
Cause we would love that. Like we have a great community, but it is small, like as far as like our adopters here in the Missouri area, so, but we want to grow that because our goal has always been, get everything set up here and in a way that works and do it the right way. And then eventually branch out because I can't say a lot about it. So
okay, gotcha.
You might need to like not put some of this in there.
Okay. Well, but if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to talk about it.
Well, no, I was going to say potentially there are about, I think, between 6 and 8 other states that like I could have potential chicken connections in.
Okay, this was actually my very next question.
That like if we could find people that would be willing to do it the way we are and agree to follow these rules, like we could help you get birds in those states, and it wouldn't be a whole thing of like getting them here and then needing to transport them long distances, which causes a lot of stress. Like you could be getting them in your state, but first we need to find, because there are people who they're not going to be okay with the way that we do things. Right. Because, this thing here or that thing there. And we respect that. Like, again, we understand we're not for everybody. But the people that are of like mind and are willing and really want to do this work, like, please reach out. Like we want to make this happen. We want this to be a bigger thing. That's always been our goal, has been, to have this be like it is in the UK.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, but you kind of already answered it, of how, someone else would get started in their own state, But obviously you've done all the work for the years that you've invested in it, so you do have a lot of the answers and the things already in place. So branching out to other states, you would just kind of copycat what you're already doing, but based on, that state's, I don't know, there could be different laws. I don't have no idea.
And that would be where it would get tricky and where we would really rely on them, because that would, like, the 3 of us, if let's say we were like, okay, let's expand to 8 other states. Let's try and run this thing in 8 other states. It's a lot for us just doing it here.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't be doing that. So that would be, we would help, like we would be there. We would be support. We'd help you get started, get you those connections, like all that stuff. You operate,
right.
Under our model. But eventually it would become like, we're more hands off. Like we trust that you're going to be able to do this, and you carry on and you save the birds. And I learned getting started in this, one of the things that I found so frustrating and I absolutely hated was I reached out to other nonprofits for help. And I was just, simple things like, hey, how did you get started doing the 501c3 process? You know, like how did you register? Like how did you register? Like how did you do this? How did you do that? And they just did not want to help me. And I'm talking about like, these were nonprofits that like, they're not even dealing with chickens, you know? So I'm like, I'm not a threat to you. And I just got so frustrated because I thought, you know, we should be working together. Our goal is the same, right? Like you guys are promoting yourselves as wanting to help all these animals.
Right.
I'm asking you for help so that I can help those animals that you're not helping. And you don't want to give me anything. You're trying to shut me out. And I always said like, I wouldn't do that. So, I mean, I've had people contact me asking, you know, hey, will you help me? Can you guide me? Can you tell me where to go? And I happily do so because I want to see them saving animals. I want to help them.
That's the way it should be, you know. That's how we all learn and grow and stuff, you know. Mm-hmm. We rely on other people. How could we help you? How could our listeners, how could Wilma help your program? What could we do?
We do a lot of events. We get invited to a number of things, and you know, that's always fun for us because we get to take the chickens and we get to you know, show them the product of after, especially when they see pictures of the before. Like, I know we don't have a huge social media presence.
We are going to change that.
I'm like, we're not like, and it's, I feel kind of sad about it sometimes. Cause like I've been plugging away at this for like I said, over 5 years. And it's like, okay, you know, and then you see other like chicken accounts start, and then they go and they like take other people's content and they have like thousands and thousands of followers within a few months. And I'm like, what? Like, and like, I'm like, you're not the right chicken people.
No comment on my own podcast.
I know. No,
but we want to change that.
That's okay. I had to vent for a minute there.
It's okay. I vent all the time. So.
No, but like and I know we should probably be more active on there, but like I said, it's just us three. And it took years for people have been bugging me for years, like, do TikTok, get TikTok. And I'm like, look, Facebook is its own thing and it's got a certain demographic.
Yes, it
and
does.
then there's Instagram that's got a different demographic. Yeah. And I just am like finally getting comfortable with this, you know, TikTok, like,
TikTok's a whole nother animal.
That's a whole new beast that I'm going to have to learn. I'm going to have to like do different content. Like,
but to be honest, TikTok would love you. TikTok would love you just being, just showing, just being real. Like that's what TikTok is about. Instagram is more of a being Instagram-y kind of thing.
Yeah, you have to have a certain like.
But I don't think you do.
I
don't think you do. We do not have a certain aesthetic. We just are who we are. So we don't even pretend.
See, in TikTok, to be fair, because I give credit where it's due. To be fair, I will say there is a demographic there that we would like to reach, you know, a younger demographic, I think, that is very enthusiastic and they want to get out there. They want to make change. Like they want to, you know, they want to do good.
I do think TikTok is probably going to be a good bet for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I would just be yourself. Show the little hens playing around, pecking around, tell a little story of each one or whatever. Just definitely, I think that would get you a lot of attention on TikTok. Because you're right. Yeah. There are a lot of young people coming up that want to make a difference and, you know, have something that they could be proud of. And I think that could be something.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's so like as it is now, which we've put a few things on TikTok. So like we do this little thing where, so we actually have a little chick neck table, right? Yeah. That we take with us to the park. And then we bring our chickens in their little strollers and we let them out. And then we set the table up and they got their little treats and stuff. And we have a chick neck and it's great. And then people are coming over like, oh my God, are those chickens? And we're like, yes, they are. And they're like, are they eating off of a picnic table? And we're like, nope, it's a picnic table.
Yeah, we got one too. They're pretty dang cool.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
And then that's a way to reach people, because then they come over and they start asking questions and we tell them who we are.
Yeah.
You know, it works.
Financially, how could we help you?
See, because I'm always hesitant to ask for money. Like I'm so weird about it. I know I need to get over this.
Our listeners can share, right? Our listeners
Yes.
can, on your website, you'll have to tell us how they can find you.
Yes. So we are part of the PayPal Giving Fund. And we always ask, if you're going to donate through PayPal, please use the PayPal Giving Fund, because regardless of what PayPal says, they do take fees.
Yeah,
they do take a cut when you just go to donate through PayPal. But if you go through the PayPal Giving Fund link, we get 100% of the proceeds. So we do also have Venmo. We don't put that out there as much. We have Venmo, we have PayPal. Amazon Smile's gone. That was a nice thing.
Yeah, Amazon changed a lot of things. Was that for? Yeah, Amazon just.
That was so helpful. Because people could sign up, or they could log in as Amazon Smile and just do all their regular shopping.
Yeah.
And if they choose us as,
do you have an
their
Amazon
nonprofit,
wish list?
So that's been tricky, because finding the feed and stuff that we need through there, it's
I can
not
understand
as
that.
easy.
Maybe other little things that
right.
that you would use for them.
And I kind of feel like that would be reserved more for the future, when we hopefully get our more permanent location.
Gotcha.
I feel like that's when that would come into play. We could add those things. But I mean, honestly, I know it sounds cheesy, but even just having people share our information, whether it's word of mouth on social media, and if you see our post and you think it's cute, like it, comment on it, share it, I don't think sometimes people understand just how much these algorithms come into play. And it drives me nuts. Just when we think we got it figured out.
Yeah, no,
but
you don't got it figured out.
The other downside for us is, since we run our Instagram account, since we're a nonprofit, we have to run it as a business account.
Gotcha.
And because of that, Instagram's like, oh, well, you're a business, so we want you to pay to be seen. And it's like, well, but we don't have money. So it's we don't want to pay to have our stuff be seen, because we don't have money.
Right.
But they won't show our stuff to people unless we pay.
We just need to relate. We need to rely on other people. And
the chicken community.
Yeah. So where can our listeners find you on the internet?
On Instagram, it's just at 2nd.hend. So at Second-Hen'd. That's also the same on TikTok. And then we're also on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. You can find us on Facebook. We're also at 2nd.hend. So all three are going to be the same.
In the show notes, I will add a link to all of these, so they won't even have to worry about looking you up. They'll just click on the button and find you.
Okay.
We would like to maybe get you back another time and kind of discuss what your future plans are. Do you have big fundraisers going on?
We would love to, but so the thing that really is probably kind of sad is, so I'm a marketing and advertising major. And so I know all the things that need to be done.
Oh no. Okay. Gotcha.
But it's I'm but we have no money to do them. And it's so then it's constant brainstorming. Well, how can we get the money? And like I said, I've always been super weird about asking for money, because I know there are people in the past that, were like, oh, hey, we're a nonprofit, and got all this money, and then it was used for not good things.
Right.
And so people are hesitant to donate. And I also feel weird asking, because I feel like times are already tough for so many people.
Right.
And it's how do we convince these people that these chickens are worth that extra couple dollars that you have to
Aw.
donate to something. You know what I mean? And
Right.
but I also hate thinking that way, because for me, these girls are everything, you know, but it's also not sustainable if it's just myself and Rebecca, the VP,
Right.
and Tegan, you know, our other board member, paying for stuff out of our own pockets.
Right. No, I mean, you couldn't continue doing that long term, and then,
Right.
you know, you're not going to be able to help as many as
But
you
it's what we do,
possibly
because
could.
we're passionate about it, and we just hope that
Right.
if we keep at it and keep at it, eventually someday that person that can really help will come along and they'll want to, you know?
I think you will.
I'm like, I know it's a long shot, but we don't give up hope.
Nope, we never give up hope.
One thing I think would be really important to discuss or cover, and this is something that we talk about people when we do, or talk about with people when we do events, is, because you touched on it earlier, you like when you asked where these birds come from, and I was
Right.
saying these girls are all caged birds, right? So they come from the cages. But when it comes to, you know, cage free, which just means that they're in
In a
barns,
warehouse,
you
yeah.
know, like
Right.
running around,
Right.
or free range, which just means that they have access to outdoors, but they can live a lot inside. And then there's pasture raised, which means free to run wherever, right?
Right.
The thing is, and again, it also, I don't think, matters so much whether it's super big commercial scale or a smaller farm. The truth is, around the same period of time, between a year and 2 years old, the same thing happens to all those birds. It's like, it's something like 300 million birds each year. And this is not factoring in meat chickens. This is just egg-laying hens in the US alone. About 300 million each year are disposed of, meaning killed,
Right.
because of this practice. And that covers, like I said, it's caged, cage free, free range, pasture raised.
Right.
Now, again, there are places out there that I think are trying to do things better, and they're trying to do things with a different model where they may try and keep the birds a little bit longer, or they may try and sell the birds or give some of the birds away, you know, instead of sending them off to slaughter. But that's not the majority. So I think that is something for people to know that's very important when they're thinking about where their eggs come from or where they're going to get eggs.
Definitely it's heartbreaking, you know, because I couldn't imagine. I have girls that are up in age. My oldest was Coco. She died last year. She was 8, you know, so we've had chickens a long, long time. And I have all of my girls. I have a single ladies club that if they don't, even half of those single ladies girls do not lay eggs, but they will stay with me until they
You
take
need to
their
do
last
a video
breath.
of them with the Beyonce song.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably have. But and they go to the vet if they need to and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
what I was trying to say before I got all caught up in my words here, but what I was going to say is it's not, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's not cost effective for businesses to keep hens around that are not going to lay. So if they go through their first molt, you know, it could be 2 or 3 months. They're not going to house them. They're not going to feed them for that long and not getting any return. That's just a business practice. I'm not saying that's how I feel. I'm saying that's the reality. It's a business practice. So what you were talking about was, you know, getting these things changed. Well, how would you change? You can't force them. Maybe, I guess, I'm just thinking out loud, come up with ways to utilize those hens in a positive way.
Yes. And that's exactly.
And they profit from it somehow. Because I don't see that happening any other way, you know.
So that's kind of like, we understand that it's not profitable, right? And our hope is that by continuing the work that we're doing and building the solid relationship that we have with the egg producer and showing, you know, that we're doing this different. We're doing this in a way that's respectful and we can follow your rules. We just want to save these birds and, you know, give them to people who want to give them the good life.
Right.
Because honestly, so like I'm not angry at the egg producer, right? Like I don't like what they do. I'm like, I don't like what's done in the industry, but me going on and on and on and on about it isn't going to do anyone any good. But if I can instead work with them and be respectful and build a relationship, they're going to learn to trust me. They may in the future be open to more ideas that I have about things, maybe changing a thing here and there, which we've already seen some of that. Like the egg producer, like they know some of my chickens' names. They ask me how they're doing. Like
Aww.
That is definitely not how things started out.
Right.
You know, like so change can happen. And I get that, like, these are people. Some of these people, like, this is what they grew up around. It's all they know.
Yes.
And they need to provide for their families.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to poo-poo on them for that, you know, because I get it. So I feel like the best thing we can do is just remain respectful, go about this a positive way, and build their trust, build those relationships, and change will come. It's not going to happen overnight. Like, that's wanting huge change overnight it's not realistic of anything, really. It's sad to say, but it's the truth.
We appreciate you so very much, and you are just a delight. And I did break my microphone stand, and that's okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
That's quite all right.
Yeah. And if you need anything else from me, just let me know.
And it's dark now, so I'm gonna go put my chickens up.
Okay.
So thank you
Go
very
take care of
much,
your
Erica.
babies.
Thank you. Bye
Yes,
now.
thank you. Bye.
I'm Mel, and you are listening to Wilma the Wonder Hen.